So, how do you spot a narcissist, and how do you know whether you are in a relationship with such a person? Well, first of all, I want to tell you that I think we make the mistake to overuse the word narcissism. So, not just because someone is maybe self absorbed or has a hard time with taking criticism, they are automatically a narcissist. I think my father was somebody who had a hard time taking responsibility, and how he looked to others was really important to him. And he also had certainly controlling tendencies. And I still wouldn't say he was a narcissist. So we have to be a little bit more nuanced about what is a narcissist and what isn't. And the reason why this is important is that when you are dealing with a full blown narcissist, there are all those additional layers to consider that as a narcissist take advantage of you, may undermine your sense of self to control you, may deliberately manipulate you so that you are not leaving the person and they have a sense of power and eventually actually dismiss or spit you out because there is no interest in them anymore. So that is what a full-blown narcissist would do. So let's have a closer look. What are the most common traits of a narcissist? Well, first of all, is this excessive need for admiration. So a narcissist would be someone who is craving validation, is always needing compliments, always needing the center of attention role, and they often boast about how great they are and how they have done more than anybody else. And even if nobody wants to listen, they continue just to make up their themselves and tell story after story just to get more and more attention. Now, from the outside, when you are looking at such a behavior, it feels cringy. It doesn't feel good because most people are much more modest and don't necessarily always, show off like a narcissist does. So that's a sign. That's already a red flag. One red flag. And why do narcissists do this? Because, not because they are feeling so great about themselves. They pretend, even to themselves, that they are the greatest, but deep inside, they have a very fragile ego. And that fragile ego, with a deep seated sense of shame, just needs from the outside all this energy in order to not crack, in order not to have to deal with the pain that is associated with it. Another sign of a narcissist is the lack of empathy. And the lack of empathy shows up with, let's say, you are struggling, you are having a cold, or you are overwhelmed with work, and you're sharing your stress or your troubles with that person. And that person will either dismiss it, not really listen to it, or give you some advice on how they have dealt with this and what you are doing wrong and what you can do better. And if you don't take this advice, or if you are not letting yourself just quickly, get fixed by this amazing thing that you were told, they get impatient, they get frustrated, they blame you for not feeling well. And there's a complete inability to put themselves into your shoes. And eventually they're going to tell you they had it much harder. They were overcoming much more difficult situations, and that you're just not that strong or that capable, whatever it is. So the lack of empathy basically is also the avoidance of any kind of vulnerability. That it is not just about that. Narcissists only think about themselves. They are also really afraid of weakness, because weakness is what they run away from, what they pretend doesn't exist inside of them. And as I just said, their egos are so fragile, their wounds, their traumas, the rejections, whatever they were dealing with is still creating so much turmoil within that they don't want to deal with anyone who is struggling, because they want to ignore their own struggles, and somebody else's struggles only reminds them of that, what they are refusing to deal with. And that's kind of a deeper explanation of why narcissists lack empathy. Then there is also the manipulative aspect of a narcissist, which is that aspect of, you know, reeling you in, showering you at the beginning when they want something from you with compliments and interest, telling you that this is fascinating what you are having to tell, or maybe you are having a narcissistic colleague and they tell you that they really are curious about your work and that you're so smart. And in a relationship it can be just, one compliment and one love bombing after another. And eventually, once you are in that, web, and you feel, oh, this is nice to get so much attention, oh, this is great to get so much positive feedback, the truth comes out. And they want something from you, and if you are refusing to do what they want, immediately there is that judgment, that criticism, that abusive behavior of putting you down, blaming you, calling you names, not being a good friend, not being a good colleague, being too selfish, and all the things that they actually are, they are projecting onto you. And this is where your own a sense of self starts to crack. And you're wondering, well, are they right? Am I really a bad person? Am I really selfish? Should I be more generous? And so the red flag is really when you see this behavior switching, the bait and switch. You get into their good graces and it feels so nice, and then they want you to pay for it, and then you don't, and then you get the cold shoulder or the rejection, or the aggressiveness. Well, this is certainly something, when you see it early on happening, step back. This is dangerous ground. And then, of course, there's also that sense of entitlement. I always find it fascinating with narcissists that when they are surrounded by people they feel, they respect, because they want their adoration, they want to associate with them because it makes them feel better, it builds them up. But then when they are dealing with lower level people, as they see it, an Uber driver, a wait staff, they show up with a sense of superiority. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'm missing the word. And they are simply, condescending, very critical, very short-tempered. And you see people like this and you wonder, how is it that around those other people they are so charming and friendly and nice and courteous, but then they really are nasty to people they don't respect. And that is where the narcissist sees themselves as better, as something above the crowd. And they treat others accordingly. Again, all fragile ego stuff. And then there is also this hypersensitivity to criticism. So if you criticize a narcissist, what happens is that they're immediately deflecting it back and blaming you. But what about you? Classic. Or saying, no, no, this is not my fault. This is your fault because you did X, Y, and Z. I had a client who told me about her boyfriend, and her boyfriend was always, you know, quick to criticize her business and how she was handling her employees, and how she should do this and that better, because whatever, the flow in her business wasn't according to his liking. But when she said something like, he shouldn't swear around the kids, or that he's driving too fast, immediately there was a backlash, to the point where she then decided, I will not say anything anymore because there's only backlash. And that is a problem with narcissists, that you cannot really discuss with them the behavior that hurts you or that you feel is not acceptable. The problem is that too fast we get into this avoidance of conflict, because narcissists have no problem with conflict. That's one of their way to control others. But we maybe don't really like conflict. We feel like, oh, peace and harmony is really so much more important in a relationship. And so we learn then that, well, in order to avoid conflict, I just let them be. I just let them criticize me. I just, let them yell at me. I just, don't really say anything that bothers me. I don't really express any needs. And so this is where in a narcissistic relationship, you start to become more someone who is managing the person's mood than really living the way you want to live, and creating a relationship that's equal and that is built on mutual respect. So this is how you are spotting a narcissist. And my advice is to look closely when you see those red flags showing up, that you're not just immediately running, because as I said, we can overinterpret as well, but that you are at least a little bit on alert. And when you see more and more of those signs creeping in, that you realize that you need to be firm and grounded within yourself. You cannot just let someone, get you into, their whatever good graces only later on to make you feel that you are less than, and that you are dependent on them, and you're questioning your entire reality. So be mindful about that. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.